While Trump fixates on the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's Mojtaba camp quietly moves to rebuild and reload its missile arsenal. New reports of underground missile cities suggest Tehran may be clawing back much of its pre-war strike power out of sight. US intelligence now fears Iran can still access around 70% of its pre-war missiles, undermining Trump's victory claims. As the ceasefire clock runs down, Iran is positioning rockets and launchers, raising fresh questions about how ready the US really is. Amid rising tensions, Iran is demonstrating that it still holds enduring leverage, thanks to its surviving missile capabilities. Despite weeks of US-Israeli strikes, Iran has retained around 70% of its pre-war missile inventory, according to the New York Times. It has also maintained roughly 60% of its missile launchers, preserving credible strike options against maritime and regional targets. When the two-week ceasefire began, US assessments indicated Iran still had access to around half of its ballistic missile launchers. Since then, Iranian forces have reportedly recovered around 100 buried systems, pushing the number of operational launchers back up towards 60% of pre-war levels. Attack drones, although reduced to around 40% of their pre-war strength, continue to threaten commercial shipping in contested waters. Intelligence reports say Iran is also digging out additional missiles from damaged bunkers, which, once recovered, could bring its usable stockpile back up to roughly 70% of pre-war levels. All of this comes as Iran has once again closed the Strait of Hormuz, in response to a US naval blockade targeting its ports. Tehran has warned that the strait will not reopen unless Washington lifts the blockade, according to Al Jazeera. US President Donald Trump, however, has insisted that the blockade will remain in place until a broader deal with Iran is reached. Both the United States and Iran have agreed to a two-week truce, which is now set to expire on April 22nd. Trump has warned that if no agreement is reached before the truce ends, US forces will resume bombing targets inside Iran. Earlier satellite images showed Iran clearing debris from underground facilities, apparently to uncover its so-called missile cities and restore launch capability. The revelation emerged on April 14th in a CNN report that cited satellite imagery, as also noted by Iran International. The images reportedly show heavy machinery being used to clear tunnel entrances during the two-week ceasefire with the United States. The entrances to these missile bases had earlier been targeted in strikes carried out by both the United States and Israel. One of the central aims of the war was to destroy Iran's ballistic missile program and weaken its long-range strike capability. US War Secretary Pete Hegseth had claimed that the joint US-Israeli operations had destroyed Iran's missile program. Hegseth also said that Iran's military had been rendered ineffective for years to come after the strikes. However, recent US intelligence assessments suggest that roughly half of Iran's missile launchers are still intact. Experts cited by CNN said this kind of activity reflects the design and purpose of Iran's underground missile cities. These missile cities are built to survive attacks, allow forces to emerge again, and resume operations after an assault. The research associate said, quote, "A ceasefire requires you to accept that your adversary is going to reconstitute some of their military capacity that you just spent a bunch of time and effort and money destroying. This aligns with the overall concept of operations for the missile city, which was, you eat the first attack, dig yourself out, and then launch again," unquote. Iran has made clear it will not accept what it calls maximalist US demands, and says it will not return to direct negotiations under the current conditions. In the meantime, tensions at sea are rising, after two Indian-flagged vessels were attacked while crossing the Strait of Hormuz, stoking fresh regional concern over maritime security. In a separate incident, an oil tanker was also fired upon by gunboats linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard, though the crew escaped unharmed. Despite battlefield losses, Iranian officials insist the country's remaining missile and drone arsenal is still powerful enough to deter adversaries by threatening to close vital shipping lanes. Tehran has warned that traffic through Hormuz will be further restricted if US measures continue to block Iranian exports. Iran's military says its forces remain fully prepared, amid growing fears in the region that the United States could resume large-scale strikes once the ceasefire lapses. Analysts say both Washington and Tehran are now leaning on pressure tactics, military moves, economic pain, and fiery rhetoric, as the ceasefire deadline draws closer. Tehran's leverage over the Strait of Hormuz has already helped drive up global prices for fuel, fertilizer, and other key commodities. And with each new warning, each naval incident, and each political soundbite, the risk of a wider regional conflict edges a little higher. Analysts in Tehran say Iran now sees Washington's approach as a dual-track strategy, mixing public diplomacy with sustained military and economic pressure. According to Abas Aslani, that blend of talks and threats suggests the US is quietly preparing for outcomes that go well beyond simple negotiations. Against that backdrop, President Donald Trump convened a high-level Situation Room meeting with his top national security team on April 18th to review the Iran file and the Hormuz crisis. Abas Aslani said, and I quote, "It seems that the two sides are engaging in war rhetoric ahead of any possible escalation and military conflict. It seems that they are pressuring each other to win concessions, and we are not there yet. There are speculations that maybe the US is possibly planning to engage in limited strikes against Iran, but Iran has been saying that it will retaliate strongly. This might end again in a wider conflict," unquote. Aslani warns that the current standoff could ultimately trigger a full resumption of hostilities between the United States and Iran, if neither side backs down. At the same time, Tehran has issued a stern warning directly to Donald Trump over the US blockade of Iranian ports, signaling that any further escalation will not go unanswered.
If there is a strait here, we are here, and everyone who wants to go through it, are you Iran to let them all go through, except us? Is this even possible? This is also a mistake on top of a mistake. Naturally, I said that if they don't lift the siege, traffic in the strait will definitely be limited. Restrictions will come. If traffic is still taking place in the strait today and is proceeding, we control the strait. Now, for 2 or 3 days, they, the US, have deliberately laid siege. What does siege mean? It means that everyone comes and goes, but Iran doesn't go. What a foolish and ignorant decision. Our dear people, the strait is under the control of the Islamic Republic. Do you remember that they wanted to send minesweepers to clear the mines? Well, we stood firm against them and confronted them. We considered this a violation of the ceasefire, and we said that if you take this action, we will strike. We even went to the stage of a clash, and they retreated. I told the American delegation there, in Pakistan, I said, we are on this border, if you come any further, we will definitely strike. They only asked for 15 minutes. They said, Mr. Kalibaf, give us 15 minutes, we'll give them order to turn back, and they ordered for retreat.